Hi, good morning. Apologies for being delayed. May I request the COMSEC to read into the record, or just assume that everybody present here, their presence is read into the record, and may we request Secretary Dominguez to make his presentation. Just for the record, this is the last for this Congress of the finance hearing. As you know, we did not conduct any hearing during the 90-day campaign period for obvious reasons. And as your outgoing chair, first we wanted to put on record the effects of the reenacted budget for the first quarter. And after the signing on April 15, how the departments have acted on the budget signed and the obligation rate as well of the 2018 budget, because there was a resolution extending its life till December 2019. In short, we wanted the agencies to know that their life extended till December 2019 and to make sure that they use the funds. You'd be surprised, we assume that they know it. I talk to agencies and they think the funds ended. An example, let's say, is Climate Change Commission, a small commission, and they did not realize that the 2018 funds could be utilized for 2019. So DBM, correct me if I'm wrong, but it applies for all the agencies till December 2019. Has there been a memo given to everyone, or we just assume they know it? We just assume they know it. There's a department order.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
There's a budget circular,
Budget
National
circular.
Budget Circular
Yes.
577.
Okay. And how it's implemented, how to, they should, their budget officer should know it. It's surprising, even local governments who work with national agencies don't know that the budgets can be utilized.
Yes, Madam Chair. Our specialists, the budget specialists, are constantly coordinating with the agencies.
Okay, yes. So perhaps may I request that this hearing be may be aired on Facebook Live of the Senate, as well as my official, not the antique, is it Inday Loren, the Senator Loren, yes, Facebook Live, as well as the DOF and DBM, so that we can really make it an educational hearing for everyone in government. So with that, we thank Secretary Dominguez and his precious time for being here. We listened to your presentation. You had very good notes during our caucus the other day. It would be good to put on record what you told us, and congratulations for upgrade and the brilliant economic performance because of the economic team led by you. So with that, we give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you to the Senate Committee on Finance Chairperson, Senator Lauren Legarda. First of all, we want to thank you for leading this committee for the last 3 years. You have certainly contributed a lot to our economic program, and working with you has been, on a personal basis, a joy. And I think I speak for the rest of the members of the economic team. We thank you for leading this committee and leading the growth of the Philippine economy to the higher plane that we have been achieving. Thank you.
The feeling is mutual.
We look forward, ma'am, to working with you in the House, and we will certainly appreciate it if you will be in a leadership position in the finance area in the House, ma'am.
Is that an endorsement? Or a recommendation, but I'm not the appointing authority.
Neither
Thank
am
you.
I, but certainly it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Senator Legarda, fellow workers in government, friends in the media, good morning. The delay in passing the 2019 budget during the first 3 months of the year hit our economy very hard. Public spending plays a crucial role in supporting the rapid expansion of domestic economic activity. The delay led to our GDP growth rate for the first quarter to fall below expectations, a four-year low of 5.6%. Because of the budget delay, government was forced to work with last year's budget. This resulted in underspending of around 1 billion pesos a day in opportunities lost, which could have been spent for social services and infrastructure projects during the first quarter. For instance, the Department of Education's repair and rehabilitation of school buildings were severely hampered. A total of 18,575 classrooms were supposed to be repaired, and 4,110 new classrooms constructed in the first quarter of 2019, and none of these was done. The payment for 328,889 grantees of the senior high school program in the amount of 7.4 billion pesos and the implementation of the new school dental health care program also had to be delayed. Were it not for these, the economy could have received a tremendous boost from much higher state spending on infrastructure modernization and human capital development projects at the onset of 2019. Besides the delay in new and ongoing infrastructure projects, as well as the implementation of social services, the re-enacted budget during the first quarter led the government to miss the opportunity to create as many as 260,000 to 320,000 more jobs, affecting the construction, public administration and defense, wholesale and retail trade, land transport, and the education sectors. The budget reenactment also derailed poverty reduction efforts, where as many as 420,000 more Filipinos could have been taken out of poverty. This is a clear example of how politicking could harm our people. By our estimates, the Philippine economy should have grown by at least 1 percentage point higher at 6.6 and possibly 7.2% in the first quarter if the 2019 fiscal program had been approved on time. This should have been well within our GDP growth target of 6 to 7% this year. This is no surprise, as national government spending accounts for around 20% of the entire economy. If the government does not perform well, all our gains will be eroded. Despite the delay of 1 full quarter in the execution of our 2019 fiscal program, we are doing our best to hurry up the execution of delayed projects. The members of the Economic Development Cluster held 2 meetings, and the last one last Friday, to formulate a carefully crafted and bold expenditure catch-up plan to enable us to hit a GDP growth rate of above 6% for this year. Key infrastructure agencies presented their updated spending plans for this year. This is to substantially offset the lower spending in the first quarter resulting from both the budget delay and the election ban on public works. To enable us to hit a GDP growth rate above 6% this year, national government needs to ramp up its spending. In 2019, national government disbursements are targeted to reach 3.774 trillion pesos, equivalent to 19.6% of GDP. This is 10.7% higher than the actual disbursement in 2018. Meanwhile, total infrastructure disbursements could have reached 1 trillion pesos, equivalent to 5.2% of GDP, with the national government accounting for 808.7 billion pesos of targeted infrastructure spending. In the first quarter of 2019, actual government disbursements amounted to 778 billion pesos, barely rising from the 772 billion pesos in 2018. For us to achieve this year's disbursement target, the government must spend a total of 2.996 trillion pesos from the second to the fourth quarters of the year. Infrastructure spending accounts for almost one-third of the amount of disbursements programmed for the said quarters. Actual infrastructure disbursements in the first quarter of this year amounted to 207.2 billion pesos. To reach our infrastructure disbursement target of 1 trillion pesos for the entire year, the government must disburse around 792.97 billion pesos from the second to the fourth quarters of the year. The spending commitment of our two main infrastructure agencies, the Department of Public Works and Highways and the Department of Transportation, with an estimated combined amount of 803.1 billion pesos, is sufficient to cover the national government's infrastructure target. Infrastructure disbursements from other agencies, such as the Department of National Defense, Department of Education, the Department of Health, can further drive spending growth if they are able to accelerate implementation of their capital outlay programs and projects. Said programs include the Armed Forces of the Philippines Modernization Program of the DND, the School Building Program of the DepEd, and the Health Facilities Enhancement Program of the DOH. DPWH and DOTR remain optimistic that they can deliver their respective commitments by accelerating infrastructure disbursements and implementation of the projects. To enable them to attain their targets, it would require close cooperation and support of other government agencies by expediting approval of permits and other requirements. Hopefully, no major weather disturbances will disrupt the implementation of these projects. It was also agreed that the government will fast-track the implementation of its priority socio-economic programs such as the National ID System, 4Ps, Social Pension, Unconditional Cash Transfer, Pantawid Pasada, and the Fuel Marking Program. But aside from the infrastructure and social protection program, the government also has to double its efforts in the agriculture sector, which should expand by at least 2% per annum. Economic growth can also be strenuously driven by the private sector. To this end, the Ease of Doing Business law, which was enacted into law last May 28, 2018, needs to be implemented with haste to encourage investment and drive growth. The executive and legislative branches of government also need to work together in passing legislation that allows for a business-friendly environment, such as the Public Services Act, Foreign Investment Act, and the Retail Trade Act. Henceforth, the economy is expected to expand at a higher clip for the rest of 2019 as inflation continues trending towards the official target of 2 to 4%, and the government accelerates the implementation of its Build, Build, Build and human capital development projects to make up for state underspending. The economic team will do its best to restore last year's upward momentum in our growth rate, but we cannot do this alone. This is a shared responsibility, and I hope that everyone will do their part as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Dominguez. Does DBM have a presentation, or we proceed with the questions?
We can proceed, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
That's a joint presentation for all three agencies.
For the whole economic team. Thank you. And just so that it's clear, in less than 2 months, the 2020 budget will be submitted to Congress. But before the new chairman of the Senate Committee on Finance tackles the 2020 budget, I, as I mentioned earlier, as the outgoing chair, just wanted to put in the proper perspective where we are right now. And I thank Secretary Dominguez and the whole economic team for his honesty, his candor, and putting the facts where they are. And putting the targets as well, so that the next chair could see and make it a benchmark for the accomplishments for the year. May I know if the budget call has been completed by this May? Usually it's the first quarter, but since we were in the middle of a campaign, I don't know if that was actually implemented.
Madam Chair, we have already issued the budget call, March of this year, and we have already conducted the technical budget hearings for the Tier 2 proposals. So the proposals will still undergo review at the higher level of the DBM.
When does the budget call end? When the Tier 2 have been decided and finally done? Of course, that's way before the SONA, where the President presents officially the budget to Congress. But when is the President's budget, or the NEP as we know it, actually closed, done?
Yes, Madam Chair. We will be having a schedule of the Executive Review Board by June 10, but that's initial. Then we will be having another sweep at the level of the DBM before June ends, and thereafter we will be presenting that to the DBCC, then the Cabinet and the President. So our target is to submit the National Expenditure Program the day after the SONA.
Thank you, Secretary Abuel. Secretary Dominguez, you mentioned about the reenacted first quarter. It says here 18,575, was it classrooms under DepEd were not realized, the construction within the first quarter. May we know, based on the 2018 first quarter, since it was a reenacted budget, there were funds allocated. If I'm not mistaken, it's around 940 billion. I'm not certain if my facts are correct, but this would include the PS, the MOE, and the capital outlay. So was the 940 billion more or less for DepEd actually utilized, since it was a reenacted budget? And why is it that the 18,575 classrooms could not be constructed utilizing the reenacted first quarter of 2018?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes,
Can
thank
I
you.
refer the question to
Yes,
OIC Abuel here?
thank you.
Because she has the details of that.
Yes. So that we actually, what I'm trying to drive at is, we may not have accomplished the target if we had passed the budget or completed the process on January 1st. But it's not actually zero, because we utilized the first quarter allocation from 2018. Now, if the 2018 was even higher than the present year, so the agencies should have accomplished as much. But maybe because of the election ban, they could not.
That's true, ma'am. But also, if they have already finished the 2018 budget, they can only spend the extra, not the whole amount. Diba?
I want to understand it. If it's a reenacted budget, if it's for classrooms, could they have used the same first quarter budget for school building program or not? Or only what is remaining from the continuing appropriations of 2018? Because my understanding in the reenacted is, iba pa yung continuing, iba pa yung amounts allocated for the first quarter. It's the same amount allocated for the same quarter of the next year. Yes.
Yes,
Diba?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
But, initially, the computation, when we go to the mathematical computation, it should have been 1/4, right, or 25%. But it is not representative of the full requirements, because you cannot contract out 25% of the entire number of school buildings. So they had to use that amount to choose so many number that they can fully contract out. So for example, Madam Chair, if you have 1 billion, you have 250 million for that. It does not mean that 1/4 of all the projects of the 1 billion will be contracted out, because you will have to choose only so that the contract will be 100% of that few items composing of the entire 1B.
So, to simplify, agencies could have utilized the first quarter 2018 budget for 2019. They should not have waited for the April 15, 2019 signing of the President, because they could have utilized insofar as capital outlay is concerned, because salaries were being paid, right, based on the 2018 levels. Did agencies do that? And did they actually understand that they could have done that, or they were waiting for the signing on April 15?
We have released a budget circular, Madam Chair, about the fund release under the reenacted budget. And for capital outlay, the capital outlays that are allowed to be obligated would be those that are existing in the NEP and existing in the previous year's GAA, because in a way you can say they are regular. But for the new items under the NEP that were not found in the 2018, then they are not authorized, because we're not sure if they're going to be included in the GAA. So that's a bit limited insofar as.
So let's go to DepEd, the school building program, which is a regular program of government. According to the economic team's presentation, 18,575 classrooms were not constructed because the 2019 budget was not yet repaired. Yes, were not yet, the 2019 budget was not yet ready. Could the agencies, in this case the DepEd, not have repaired it utilizing the previous year's budget? And if I'm not mistaken, 25% of 1.008 trillion in 2018 is 252 billion for 1 quarter. Could they not have used the 252 billion for repairs of classrooms since it's a reenacted budget? They shouldn't have waited for April 15 to move.
Right, Madam Chair. So, as we have said earlier, since it's a regular program in a way, capital outlay, they could have used it in order to contract out a few, not the entire number as targeted for 2019 under the NEP or the GAA eventually. However,
just to clarify, not new location classrooms, not new buildings, but to continue thousands of classrooms, DepEd schools, there's some repair and rehabilitation always needed somewhere. Pwede yun. Hindi bagong itatayo sa isang bundok. Oo.
Yes,
maliwanag
yes,
yun.
Chair. Okay.
So, dapat po ay ginamit nila yung budget ng 2018 dahil meron naman pondo at nag-release naman ang DBM. Kaya po, walang dahilan ang ahensya na hindi gumalaw hanggang Abril 15 dahil sabi nila walang pera. Ganon ang ginagawa nilang dahilan, walang pera. Baka hindi nag-release DBM o nag-release naman. Or baka hindi nila alam kung magkano yung budget available base sa unang quarter ng 2018 na reenacted. Or it may be also due to the ban. Or the ban allowed the construction of regular programs. Right?
Yes, ma'am. For the amount of the reenacted figures, the reenacted amount for school building program, for example, they should know it because in our circular po, we call it the obligational authority, automatic sa kanila po yon. So for capital outlay, we told them it is the level appearing in the National Expenditure Program or NEP or the 2018 GAA, whichever is lower, para po mas sigurado. Kasi in effect, ibig sabihin po, yun ang likely, hindi ka lalampas doon sa whatever will be enacted later on. Well, one of the observations that we have is that the school building program is actually, that the implementation is one of those challenging budget items in the GAA and even for DepEd. The implementation is being done, the construction is being done by the DPWH for the new construction, but the report to us is that there is difficulty insofar as the preparatory works are concerned. So, bago po magawa ng DPWH, all the necessary logistics and preparations on the side of the DepEd, medyo nahihirapan, like the lots, the location, yun po. So those are the things that we also wanted to be clarified about insofar as the DepEd is concerned. Kaya in-identify po namin yan because we also want the DepEd to present to us how can we be able to address the delays in the implementation of school building program.
That goes for the HFEP as well. It's mentioned by Secretary Dominguez and all other agencies. Since this is macro and we don't have the agencies represented, may we please request the DBM to submit to us what were the funds available per department insofar as capital outlay and MOE is concerned for the first quarter from January 1 to March 30, January to March or to April? April 15? Do you consider that up to April 15 or March 30?
End of April, Madam
Okay,
Chair. So,
end of
kinap
April.
off po natin ang end of April and then kakarga yan sa GAA. So, the rest is May 1 up
May
to
1.
December.
Okay, good. So, up to April 30, and what was actually obligated and disbursed by the agency? Would they have those reports already?
It's coming in. What we have is up to March 31.
Up to March,
so
that's fine.
we will try po to compile.
Is it an
those
online
after.
report?
Yes, ma'am. Nandyan po.
Nandyan lang.
It's
We can
under the URS, Unified Reporting System.
maintindihan namin, technical, it's easy to access. It would be good if every agency has an online report so that they're also very transparent and yung mga nahuhuli sa implementation, sa obligation disbursement nila, they'll be conscious of it.
Accessible, ma'am,
That's-
as I was informed.
Pero give us na rin so
Even
that bite size so that we understand it.
And we'll summarize it
Yes,
po.
please.
Yes.
Secretary Dominguez, you mentioned about certain targets, like, and you need to spend in the next from second to fourth quarter, and you especially mentioned agriculture, maybe the page on agriculture, that it has to grow by 2% at least. The growth of last year of agri was what? Wala. Do we have the agri growth? What was the agri growth of 2018? I think less than 1%. Is the 2% growth in agri, Secretary?
0.1%.
0.1, yes. However, in your presentation, you mentioned that we anticipate or expect a 2% growth in agriculture.
No, ma'am, that's not what we expect. That's what we need.
We need, correct, we need, okay. Sige po. It says here,
The reason is, ma'am, our population is growing by something like 1.7%. And if our food production
that's not,
is not keeping up, then we're going to have problems with
Food
supply
deficit.
and prices.
we'll have to import food.
Yes, ma'am.
No, that's very, when we're so rich, when we have a rice producing, we have marine, we have,
Yes,
with
ma'am.
kamote, it's so easy to plant. You're correct, no? So our
Yes,
growth,
ma'am.
sir, was 0.1, is that correct?
Last year, yes.
0.1, or baka 0.01 pa? Do you have it?
What's 0.8? No, the first quarter is 0.8, di ba? The first
The
quarter
whole
is
of
0.8.
2018, do we have the
What I
whole of
have here is
2000?
last year was, for the full year is what?
The full year.
0.9? 0.9, sorry. 0.9.
Here, it's here.
No,
Tama
no,
ba
sorry,
ito?
that's wrong. It should be 0.9.
We already have the 2019 first quarter is 0.8.
Yes, ma'am.
And then 2018
0.9.
first quarter,
Sorry,
but
that should
sa
have been
inyo
0.9.
1.1, ba't iba
What
yung
is
sa
it?
Senate? PSA ito. The PSA, first quarter 2018 is 1.1 compared to 2019 first quarter, 0.8.
Ma'am, but look at the whole trend from 2009.
Oo. 2000,
And 9. From
9.
2009, we have hardly grown.
exactly. Yes, you're correct, Secretary. So, needing a, not target a need of 2%. Is it realistic, sir? Is it realistic? And what kind of farm inputs, what kind of strategies, what kind of climate resilient initiatives, policies, equipment, seeds, irrigation should we do? There must be innovations for us to target that when historically for the past 10 years we've hardly grown. It's a sector that has not, what's the opposite of grow? Napabayaan.
Like,
Lag, it is lag behind.
Yes.
And you're correct. We don't want food insecurity. We don't want food deficit to feed our 110 million people. We can't be importing food when we are so rich in food sources. So ano po, as head of economic team secretary, how do we operationalize a 2% per year expected need of our population?
we have a meeting tomorrow, ma'am.
Okay.
With Secretary Piñon. Unfortunately, they were not able to present anything in the last two meetings, so he asked to meet today, but I said we have no time, so we'll meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock, ma'am.
Yes. So,
To
actually,
review their,
yes.
to listen
what have they
to
been doing?
what their
Yes.
plan is
Yeah.
to bring about a growth of at least 2% in agriculture, 2% per annum in agriculture.
Ito pong ninyong graph ay iba sa amin sa PSA. Bakit ganun? Iba sa kanila.
Oh.
0.3, 0.3, 0.1. Bakit sa atin 1.1, 1.8? Ba't iba ito?
Hold on.
PSA, per quarter kasi. Iba yung sa amin from PSA. This is full year. Okay, so 2018 full year is 0.1. That's accurate? 0.1?
That is the contribution to growth, ma'am.
Contribution to growth
Yes.
versus GDP, against GDP.
Yes.
Okay. And the expectation is, if it's 0.1 in 2018, and the expectation is 2% in 2019, how can we reinvent them? The people in the secretary, I'm being very realistic. What is that new innovation that the DA should do within the next just 8 months that they will have changed everything and from 0.1 to 2? And assuming they don't, which I am almost certain, sadly to say, they won't, how will it change again our economic scenario based on your presentation without a 2% per year growth in agri?
The goal, ma'am, is to keep up with the minimum is to keep up with our population growth. That's number one. Number two, the second goal is not to be a drag on total
They
growth.
have to be dragged down the...
Yeah, on total growth. Because if they do not grow, if they don't keep up, essentially what will happen is that the people who are relying on this industry are going to fall farther and farther behind than the people who are in the industrial, commercial, services, banking sectors of the economy. And you know, you will be creating a disparity between between people in the rural areas and the people who are in the urban areas. Now that is certainly not part of the goal of this administration.
It's probably, no, it's very good that the head of the economic team is an agriculture expert. So I would like to ask the question again. If you headed the DA as well, or if you had your advice to the DA, what would you not do that they've been doing for 3 years and they should follow you? Secretary, you know it best among all of us in this room.
Well, I certainly would make up for the backlog in agricultural research, because actually knowledge is what drives the growth, right?
ATI,
Well, ATI, no, I'm talking of the Bureau of Agricultural Research, the research done by the Aggie schools around the country.
even Erie,
Yes,
UP,
Phil
Rice,
Rice,
Phil Rice,
etc. And, ATI is certainly the agency that disperses this knowledge, is supposed to disperse this knowledge. But I think that's one. I mean, you increase the fund of knowledge, you make the environment for agriculture, make the conditions for farmers easier. You make sure that they have sufficient water, access to roads, access to fertilizers.
that's all been funded since time immemorial, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, ma'am.
FMRs,
Yes, ma'am.
small water impounding.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, you have to implement it, and implement it in an effective way, okay? And lastly, I would really ask for the legislature to review the devolution of agricultural of the extension workers, because they have been devolved to the local governments, and quite frankly,
I don't think it's
many
a priority
times
in
the
some.
local governments do not utilize the agriculture people who they inherited. I don't think they utilize them properly.
So you would say that it would be best if they fall under central, so they can have direct access to research?
Maybe not, but certainly for the department to engage more, to make a deal with the local governments and say, okay, even unofficially turn over their supervision to the national government, or at least encourage the local governments to work more closely with the Department of Agriculture. And if that doesn't work, then you reverse the devolution authority.
Then that would need legislation.
Yes,
Was
ma'am.
it a law
Yes.
that devolves
Yes,
them
ma'am. Yes,
to?
ma'am. Yeah, the local autonomy law,
Ah, the
which
local
in
government,
the 1980s I severely opposed but lost. And there were two departments that did that, okay, that opposed the devolution. Number one was health, and number two was agriculture.
And you are proven correct.
I believe so. And I believe even in the health sector, the local governments, I think, still rely on the the Department of, Oh, yeah, they're renationalizing.
Yes, because even the restoration of the HFEC budget and all the
Exactly,
requests up to a
exactly.
small rural health center goes to the Committee on Finance when it is supposed to be devolved.
Exactly. So I think the Congress in
Should look into
in the late 80s overestimated the ability of the local governments to implement national programs in health and agriculture. So I think we have to rethink that. That's 40 years ago, So I think we have to rethink. It hasn't really worked.
You're correct, Secretary. So, number one, legislation to rethink amendments to the local government code insofar as health and agriculture are concerned. Second, in the absence of such amended legislation, for the workers in extension programs in local governments to work more closely with the Bureau of Agricultural Research and the ATI. That can be a GAA provision, pinapagbiling ko na sa maiiwan dito, simply because that's the most important legislation. Or GAA, ilagay lang yan sa GAA para may close coordination ang lokal na pamahalaan na kanilang extension workers at ang central or national government. As simple as convergence among agencies. For example, tuna and marlin abounds in my home province of Antique. But the fisher folks are very poor. They simply sell their catch to traders in Iloilo, Aklan, even as far as Mindanao in Gensan. If there was a tuna processing facility which the Department of Trade could provide through their shared services facilities, and all they need are blast freezers, cold storage, and to teach them bottling, marketing, so that there would be value added in their produce, it will provide employment at mas tataas ang presyo ng kanilang huli. Ngayon, nabubulok at maski magkano nilang ibenta kasi wala silang pang-storage. Ganun pong kasimple, hindi ba? Mas yayaman o magkakaroon ng increased daily income ang mga mangingisda kung meron yan.
If I'm not mistaken, ma'am, I think the last large fish port was constructed during my term.
Gensan.
That was in Gensan.
Gensan.
And actually, it's working very well.
It is, yes.
I visited it recently, and I'm surprised it works.
It does. In fact, maybe there should be more regional fish ports such as Gensan. I always mention Gensan, and actually I envision my home province to have something like that, similar, maybe not as grand, as big, because ang yaman-yaman namin, ang tawag na tuna highway eh. So, ang mura, libre lang dyan lang, at hindi naman nakakain lahat. Pero mahirap ang tao. Yun.
Yeah, because the fish port will provide first of all ice before they leave, and processing when processing of the catch. So I don't know what happened to the fish port program. I haven't seen it actually in the NEDA priorities, but
They have CFLs, Community Fish Landing, under the ABFAR. But the CFLs, I'm shocked, you will be shocked, are sometimes being used as parking lots of local governments. I inspected in remote barangays, not in my province, 2 years ago, in Palawan, hindi ginagamit ng mangingisda, ginagamit ng mga mayor o kung sino dyan na parkingan or private nila. Because sometimes the location of the community fish landing are not really where the fisher folks want it. Kung saan available na binigay ng LGU o gusto ng mayor. Tas nasasakop.
well, that's another argument for reviewing the legislation.
Yes. Second, yung blast freezer or cold storage, wala dun. Minsan nilalagay sa munisipyo o sa bahay ng LGU na hindi dapat pinapakinabangan ng mangingisda. Minamicro ko lang itong acting makrong problema sa budget kung saan nangyayari. Yan lang, marami pa.
Yeah, that's why I think those are arguments, ma'am, for
Yeah.
rethinking the devolution of the.
I would introduce such an amendment in the GAA this year. Even if I'm one of the 300 Kongs, and even if I don't, assuming I don't chair any committee, I would introduce that amendment. I will help craft it with the economic team because it's so important in the absence of that local government, because they could be resistance in the legislation to amend the local government code. But if you put that, and there's a valid reason for that, it can be applied in the GAA.
There's another issue, and of course, this is not the economic issue, but a term of 3 years is really short to implement any program. We have an MDFO unit in our department where we lend money to the local government. So I'll tell you what happened. So it probably will take a year to determine the project study, and then probably 6 months to process the loan in the MDFO or even Land Bank or DBP. So you have only 1.5 years to implement it, and usually it cannot be fully implemented in 1.5 years. And the local government guy has to stand for election again, and he's not sure. So it doesn't lend itself to long-term planning for the municipality programs. The other point I want to make is that a lot of because the tenure is relatively short, they don't think long-term. And also, because the tenure also of the governor is short, he doesn't think of putting different projects and linking them together. So we have a project, say, in one municipality, another similar project, let's say a road building in another municipality, but nobody thinks of putting it together and making it a province-wide or a region-wide project, which usually, if you do it on a larger scale, might even cost less per unit. Di ba? Yeah,
There's the local
economies of
development
scale.
councils, and there's the provincial development councils, and the RDCs, and NEDA leads that. So, dyan dapat nagko-converge lahat kung mag-a-attend yung mga elected representatives.
Yes,
Pero tama po kayo, sa 6 months na nanalo, magpapasalamat. Isang taon, nagaplano. Sa susunod, mga kampanya.
Exactly.
Pasasalamat, 6 na yan eh. Tapos sa next year, sige, plano, ganun. Pagkatapos nung susunod na taon, kampanya na naman.
Yes, but this is really not an exercise in reviewing the laws or legislation, but to link rural development, which is most importantly agricultural development, with our system. So our system doesn't seem to lend itself to long-term agricultural or rural development planning. So, but that's only my comment as the economic team. So, again, as I said, you have to make the conditions such in the rural area and the agriculture sector that there is a chance for the farmers, because they are the productive units. It's not the department. Department is here to enable them, not to actually produce the food. So you have to set the condition that the farmer can actually take advantage of the different levels of assistance of the government. So that, not to mention that the government's level of assistance should be also enhanced.
Secretary, that the farmers are willing and able, but they have to be empowered. Simple, patubig. Let's say, sa isang remote barangay, sa isang munisipyo, minsan lang sa isang beses ang harvest ng rice. Pero sa kabilang bayan, 3 beses. Sa isang probinsya yon. Kasi isa may patubig, isa walang tubig o malayo sa source ng water. So meron lang tayo maayos, basta may pondo na hindi ninanakaw at inalagay sa patubig para sa magsasakang maliliit, ay sila'y willing na magtrabaho kasi pagkain nila yun kabuhayan nila. So patubig ang mahalaga, basta wag nakawin. Kaya lang kasi, ang nangyayari sa atin, pag irigasyon, pagpatubig, parang ang hirap kasi audit ng co-op, hindi efficient lahat. I'm not saying people steal it, but it's not really efficiently implemented. And why is it with indigenous peoples that say in a barangay called Fulion, in Valderrama, or in San Remillo, in Antique, 3 times a year ang harvest, walang intervention ng DA, ng gobyerno, walang FMR. 3 times a year ang harvest. Masabuti pa silang hindi tayo nakikialam at ayaw nila makialam. At buhay sila.
But can you imagine if there were effective interventions?
Yes.
It might have been a higher yield.
Higher yield.
Or easier transportation.
Yes. So, tubig talaga. But thank you for that. I just wanted, and just a second intervention for convergence. Ang dami-dami nating prutas, and you know that better than me, or the agriculturist, nahuhulog na lang, nabubulok, avocado, langka, makopa, mangga, and I see it all over. Let's say in my province, fruit processing facilities, not just for domestic consumption, but for export. Again, which agency should do this? DTI for shared services facilities, DA, nahuhulog na lang.
I have another point in that.
Yes.
One of the reasons that our food processing industry is not as developed as others is because of the price of sugar. Sugar is a big ingredient in food processing. And if you have prices of sugar which are double the world market price, here, you will not get a food processing industry. So that is one of the conditions. Again, I say that you're not linking food production with uh, food processing. There's very little linkage, and one of the problems, as I said, is the price of sugar. The sugar prices, say, in Thailand are roughly half of ours.
Another one hearing altogether, another issue altogether. Thank you. I saw Yusek Adilion raising her hand. Yes, you have an
Yeah, thank you,
intervention.
Madam Chair. Just to inform the Chair that we just conducted an agricultural research forum, I think 2 weeks back. This is really in preparation for the conduct of an agricultural summit as per the directive of the Cabinet last April, I think. Yeah, so during that research forum, so there were all the agricultural research institutes of the DOST, the DA was there, DTI was also there, the SUCs, and then of course the NEDA was also there. And we have actually, well, we are still collating the findings from that forum. The intent was really to take stock of new knowledge in the agriculture sector. You were talking about how to increase the growth of the agriculture sector from just 0.8 to 2. It's really a big ask, but I think one of the things that we can do in the very short term is to encourage more of the livestock and poultry industry, because the turnaround is quite quick. But we are looking towards a more robust solution of the agriculture sector. One of the things that we have identified to be the problem, as you already know, is the climate change. Because many of the farmers have actually been, incurring losses, and like when we went to Cotabato City, and one of the farmers then said that parang paano naman kami nito, like last year we had 20 typhoons. This is Mindanao, supposedly hindi naman kami nagta-typhoon. That's inundated yung kanilang lugar. So ang hirap
The
nila
new norm,
makapangon.
as I said.
Yeah. So
Recognize
yun.
Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, our expert on energy and economic affairs.
Tapos ang isa pang nakita rin namin, Madam Chair, is yung issue ng agricultural land. So between 2002 and 2012, we now are looking at 2 million hectares less of agricultural lands. So that's a reduction of about 200,000 hectares per year. So yung susunod natin na census on agriculture and fisheries will be in 2022 pa, pero tingin namin mas bababa pa ulit doon. So in terms of the average size of the farm, dati in 2002 it was at 2.3 hectares per farm. Ngayon nasa 1.3 hectares per farm na laang ang average farm size. So you have all these challenges, and I think kailangan even the legislation actually has to look into I don't know, laws governing yung pooling of the lands, progressive idle lands tax, the use of lands without really the owner giving up his property rights, all these things. Kasi yun ang nagre-reduce ng ng production of agriculture.
Thank you, Yusek. May we ask Secretary Dominguez, if the budget was passed on time, what would the growth rate be?
I beg your pardon, ma'am?
If the budget, if there was no budget impasse, what would the growth rate have been?
Well, the estimates range from 1 percentage point to additional to 1.6, I think. So, within that range, certainly better than where we were. Okay, so maybe, I think the lower end is 1 percentage point, but Yusek Hill has some numbers there. If you can.
High side, again, it's really crying over spilt milk, but we just have to learn hard, our lessons hard. So ano sana, it could have been 1% at the lowest, on a high, it could have been 2%? No, di naman.
But certainly, if you look at the deficit last year, which is 3.9%, and the deficit this year for the first quarter, which is 2.1%, then the difference could be it on the high side. Since last year we were able to lick the problem of underspending, if we were able to duplicate that this year, it could have been as high as 1.6 to 1.8. No, the additional growth that was...
Another growth of 1.8.
yes.
1.6 to 1.8.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would have been 7 point something.
Do you completely blame it on the budget impasse or also because of the election ban on spending? Nagsabay eh. Even if we pass the budget on time, but there was a ban effective March 29. March 29 ba, not February, no? On infra spending lang, no?
Yeah, let's just compare it to what happened in 2016. There was an election ban. So what was the growth in the first quarter of 2016? It was over 6. Diba? What is the growth in 2016? And that there was an election ban also. But there was no re-enacted budget in 2016. So you just compare it with that. That should be, that doesn't completely answer the question, but that gives you an indication of where it's at. Huh?
I'm sorry?
8% in 2016.
16. Okay.
First quarter.
So, simply, it could have been, at most, a 1.8% higher growth. We lost it because of the delayed budget. Okay, that's it. I just wanted to put on record. Now, my question to DBM is, why should DBM limit the expenditures to 25% of the whole budget or 1/4 for capital outlay when the entire budget was reenacted? Should we have not allowed the entire expenditure for ongoing projects, not new projects and regular programs, provided it does not exceed the NEP of 2019? Because underspending infrastructure would have been limited to the new projects for 2019. So that's my question. Why limit it to only 25% for capital outlay?
It's just a matter of mathematical computation, Madam Chair, insofar as the 25%. What we want also is to, because of that obligational authorities to control the disbursements on the other side. But as we have said, the agencies, we also advise them that the agencies for very important regular items can request additional obligational authority for that.
So they could have.
They could have po,
So
but
that 25% is just like a number,
Yeah.
but as long as it's within the NEP of 2019, they could have exceeded that.
right, Madam Chair, but as it is, even the obligational
They could
authority
not.
po, they could not.
So, Secretary, just the funds were available. The agencies knew that the 2018 level was available, and as long as it's within the NEP of 2019, the obligational authority was there, and they could have spent more. But even just at 25%, they could not even chew. So, it may not have been the budget impasse because the funds were there. They could have referred to 2018 reenacted, but they were not even using the budget as reenacted, right? And even assuming, yes, I just wanted to make sure, even assuming there was no reenacted budget, they couldn't even use the 25%.
Madam
Am I
Chair.
correct?
Yes.
Oo.
Madam Chair, that may be true to some agencies, but to the others not. For example, DPWH, very efficient po. So if we try to take a look at it closely, for example, DPWH, they were allowed, all agencies were allowed early procurement activities. As long as it is found in the NEP, they could have started procurement activities short of award, even before the enactment of the GAA.
Many of the NEP did not end up in the GAA.
Opo, but yes, so the others, they could have done that, but there is also a rule na pag wala, they can just cancel it. But in that particular case, supposedly, if there was no re-enacted budget, as early as January 1st po, around that time, the first quarter, they could have already awarded. Tapos the implementation could have been started even before the election ban. That's the other side of looking at it po.
You wanted to comment on that? No. So it's clear that it's actually three. It's the budget impasse, but if the agencies were more aggressive, they could have utilized the 25% of the 2018 level and even exceeding it because you gave the obligation authority as long as it's not beyond the 2019 net. But you said the agencies did not use that or take advantage of that. Second, so it's the agencies itself, it's a budget impasse, and it's also the election ban. Yeah, all of that put together. So we've learned our lesson.
But again,
Yes.
I said you look back at 2016 when we had a presidential election and an election ban. It didn't affect the growth. In fact, it speeded it up. So, you know, I mean,
Maybe the agencies were different then, or and there was no budget impasse. So at the time, dalawa, agencies and budget impasse. But we admit it's a budget impasse. Of course, I admit it. Not saying it's my fault. Obviously, it's not. Yes,
it's not the fault.
It's
it
the
just
situation.
happened.
It just happened.
And,
Not to blame anybody. It's a situation.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't know.
It should. I'm sorry. What did you say?
I couldn't completely agree with your last situation, with your last statement,
What was my last statement?
that you cannot blame anybody. I think you can.
You cannot blame anybody in this room. Secretary, can you blame someone in this room?
Of course not.
Okay, I'm just not into the blame game. I just wanted to be diplomatic. Okay, let's move forward then. You have any questions? Okay, let's proceed with DBM. So the obligation rates of 2018 and 2019, may we know the 2018 budget till December of 2019? Huling-huling deadline na yan, para lang maalam na ngayon siya, or is there a possibility of it being, how do you say it, being extended till 2020? Hindi na. Talagang deadline na yon per our resolution, unless a new resolution is filed.
Yes, according to the joint resolution of Congress, it's December 31, 2019 po. So that's the deadline. As you said, unless further, but historically, it's just 1 year.
Do you foresee the present year's budget, since we're just starting on May 1, to have a similar life as a 2018 budget? But if you say that, the agents would say, meron pa palang next year, o sige, saka na. Baka ganun.
Right. In the president's veto message and in the GAA, the deadline is December 31, 2019. So, we're working on a cash budget, but insofar as the disbursements are concerned, as indicated in the veto message of the president, because of the transition, we're going to allow the completion, the complete implementation as well as payment for infrastructure projects until December 31, 2020. Originally, the original concept or the full concept of cash budgeting is that obligation, completion, acceptance, payment within
I-clarify natin yan, kasi bago yung cash budget, first time, no?
Yes, ma'am.
It is the first time in our history. Was there ever a time in our history we had cash budgeting? Never.
Never.
Okay, so that we understand it and that we use it and implement it correctly, cash budgeting would mean obligation, meaning ina-allocate natin, ina-appropriate. Second, disbursement, binabayaran natin. At pangatlo, yun na yun.
Second po is implementation.
Implementation, paggawa ng proyekto, na completion of the project. And third, binabayaran ang supplier, ang contractor at loan. So we have May up to December 31 to do that.
Under the original or full concept of cash budgeting, it should be up to December of 2019. But
Yes.
in view of the circumstances po, we recommended that as a part of transition, we will still extend the infra to practically the same period as it was, well, the delay for the enactment, and as well as the implementation because of the
Meaning what
election
date?
ban. So December 31, 2020. Initially, when there were when there were initial talks po about the initial adoption of cash budgeting, the DBM and Congress were looking at extending it 6 months.
6 months. Now
supposedly
it's
June
1 year.
30.
Now it's even longer.
We realize because of the impasse on the enactment of the GAA, as well as the effect of election ban. And as it is now po, there were actually clamor na delay or defer the implementation, but we said no, there's no longer any
Obligation will be till December of 2019.
Yes, as indicated in the general
Implementation and disbursement ang December 2020.
2020 po.
Secretary, how would that affect our targets, our growth targets, if the cash budgeting is not followed the way it is now?
Actually, Janet is right, okay? I mean, because of the circumstances, I think we have to postpone the full implementation of cash budgeting. So I think it will help that that the full implementation is deferred until 2021, di ba? 2020, until 2020. I think that will certainly benefit the effort to do a catch-up. Yeah.
There's so much money this year because of the extension of the life of the 2018. The 2018, I'm sure disbursements are being done now, right? The first quarter, second quarter. So what is the effect of the resolution of 2018 to the projected deficit? Because extending the 2018 MOE and CO will increase the available appropriations for 2019. Will we withhold some of our 2019 expenditures so that the cash program and our deficit will remain unchanged? Or were the targets already done after our resolution of the 2018 extension? So if yes, what are the probable items appropriations that will be withheld? If no, then we leave it as such.
Yes, Madam Chair. So you are right. The 2018 continuing appropriations were already factored in our target cash disbursement. So as mentioned earlier, the 3.774 cash program. So that's our target cash program in order to be able to reach at least 6%, the 6% at least economic growth. But since we're talking about disbursements, it would include the cash disbursements for not just for 2019 or under the 2019 GAA, which is only partly expected to be partly disbursed because it would also depend on when they will complete that. So there will be some items that will be paid next year. So there will be some accounts payable coming from prior years that will form part of the disbursement as well as the continuing appropriations. So if we take a look at those items that would contribute to economic activities, it would be continuing appropriations partly because these are projects that will be implemented, as well as the portion of the General Appropriations Act for 2019. So the 3.77 for already includes us.
Federation.
Yes, Madam Chair. And also the targets of DPWH and DOTR as reported earlier. So the total of 803B would factor in already the continuing appropriations, and anything more than that would really affect our deficit. We will be overshooting it allowed more than that. So we're going to try to program. So for example, if we spend more in capital outlay or infra because we needed to boost it up, we have to offset it against MOE and PS. So for MOE, later on po, we will see because the DBM is looking at also recommending the extension of the MOE up to June 30, 2020. Because if part of the MOE will be sacrificed in order to cover increase or accommodate increase in disbursements for economic growth, then we have to slide the MOE a little. But that is just a plan for us.
Part of the veto message.
Not part
So
of the
only the
veto.
life of the infra, of the
Yes.
capital outlay.
Yes,
But
Madam
you would
Chair.
need the MOE di ba kasabay yun eh? Oo.
Yes, Madam Chair. But there are MOE there are items that are classified as MOE which can be even implemented in the early succeeding year. But we'll check that out. The regular MOEs, of course, they are necessary because these are the regular maintenance and operating expenses of the agencies. Those need to be released and disbursed within the year. Released but not necessarily fully disbursed because of efficiency measures. Some agencies might be able to save.
Secretary Abuel. May I have the exact, was it in your presentation, Secretary? The reenacted budget cost how much a day in terms of underspending? Do we have that?
It's roughly 1 billion
1 billion.
for the first 90 days, di ba? The first quarter, yeah. Yeah, if it's 91B and you divide it by 90 days, it's 91 billion. Di ba?
How much of the 90 billion for that quarter is attributable to the delayed release of the fourth tranche of the salary standardization? Who would, DBM would know that?
But because you actually released it, right? So it doesn't count there. Yeah, because they actually released it before the end of April. So we're just counting until the end of, March, right?
We believe that the agencies were able to disburse sometime April.
Yeah.
April po.
We just... So how much was that? Would you know? Yeah, but the point is, we're only talking of a period of 90 days. So in that period, we didn't spend 91 billion. So that's $1 billion a day. So maybe they caught up in April, but that's not part of our calculation.
The figure we have here for the fourth tranche, for civilian, it's 32.6, and military, 13 billion. Ano to, diba? About 45 billion.
May we know from DBM, how are you encouraging our agencies, even with them anticipating that there would be a resolution to extend the life of the budget, but how are we pushing them to implement projects, especially the traditionally slow-moving agencies, DepEd, school building program, HFEP, health facilities. Some are even utilizing 2017 funds for 2019.
Yes. We conduct semi-annual agency performance review where we take a look at the financial performance as well as the physical performance of the agencies. But that is in medium term in a way if you look at 1 year, so every semester. But we also take a look at the disbursements of the agencies every month. One thing that we also do, and under my watch recently, we check out the more important items and even advise the agency heads and even the agency financial officials to make a request. Minsan po even request wala pa. So, yung releases from the DBM, of course, is always triggered by request unless ito po yung for comprehensive release. So, one particular case, for example, in the agri, I asked, did we release this already? Not yet, ma'am. There's no release yet. We called them already and advised them to submit to us. So, minsan pa doon nagtatagal. Even just the request,
Kailangan pa
mabagal
i-request
pa.
ng ahensya, hindi automatic release based on programs submitted in the NEP?
Ano po, kasi for later release yun, there are requirements, the conditions that must be complied with. The FCR po, for comprehensive release, we already released the NBC 577, which covers almost 70% of the budget. So yun po, automatic, they can already implement that.
Senator Sherwin, before I close, you have any questions?
Just have a quick question, ma'am, and can be with DOF or NEDA. I was looking at the numbers. How much in the next few quarters, maybe through to NEDA, how fast do we need to grow in order to catch up with the target?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. For Q2 up to Q4, we need to grow by at least 6.1% in order to reach the lower end of the growth target of 6 to
The target has been revised to 6 at the lower end,
7%.
6 to 7. And just in order to reach the 6, the lower end, how much do we need to grow?
We need to grow 6.1.
6.1.
Yeah, for the
And
next
where
three.
will it come from, that 6.1?
We're hoping public construction and manufacturing, actually. Manufacturing, we're also thinking that
Construction meaning government should catch up also.
government and private construction. So government is about 1/4 of the entire construction value added. So if the private sector could actually just add a few, in terms of expansion, then that will actually make up for it. Tapos yung we're seeing healthy growth in the financial intermediation. I think that's also in response to the monetary easing early part of the year. There's also the tourism in anticipation of the SEA Games. Hopefully that will also bring in lots of revenues. Manufacturing, to the extent that it is related also to construction.
Will it affect our poverty targets? Especially, we have a target, I think, in 2022, about 14%. With this type of issues and problems, will it affect? Obviously, it will affect our poverty targets, no? Because we're not spending. But how big is the effect to our poverty targets?
We have estimated that the budget impasse actually resulted in about 420,000 Filipinos that could have been taken out of poverty Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, so that here in the presentation. And how do we compensate this 420? Secretary, what do you suggest government should do to catch up and compensate this 420,000 Filipinos who were not lifted out of poverty because of the budget impasse? How do we catch up and compensate?
A lot of this is really because of the jobs that were not generated because of the budget impasse, and therefore there really needs to be, well, government really needs to speed up its build, and also for the private construction, we're hoping that yung mga administrative measures, so with respect to approvals, mga issuance of permit, baka ito yung hindi sila nakakasipa. FDA, we heard there's about 10,000 applications being processed there, nakapending. And ito yung pwede sana to increase the growth in manufacturing, in particular food manufacturing. So mga ganun ang kailangan pang We actually need more encouragement for the private sector.
But those are outside of the budget impasse, mga red tape na yan you said.
Yes. So for sa government, it's really the build. Kaya yung sinabi kanina ni Sec Dominguez, yung mga permits then for all these constructions that will be implemented. Kasi kahit government kailangan din kumuha ng mga permits So hoping that there will be no delays in that as well.
Secretary Abuel, nakita ko dito sa presentation that government needs to spend about 790 trillion in the next 3 quarters. Is it billion? 792 billion in the next 3 quarters. Yes. Kakayanin ba ito? And that
Actually,
what
sir,
do we need to do in order to
The commitment of the two big infrastructure agencies is a total of 803 billion to catch up. So that's 725 from the DPWH and 78 from the DOTR, as we have shown earlier, and they have committed that it may be difficult but it's not impossible. So yun po, and as we have reported, that Secretary Dominguez has reported earlier, that would, since we have a Q1 actual disbursements of only 7.9, and our target is 3.774, we still have so much amount, which is for Q2, 937 billion, for Q3, 968, and for Q4, 1,089,000,000,000. So if you will take a look at the 937 and 968 for quarters 2 and 3, that would be 1.906, and add 777. Per record of the DBM, we have released as of Friday 1.597 trillion NCA. But that does not automatically translate to disbursements. That's why the request of the economic team is, we have released so much and we will still be releasing immediately for the others that the agencies need to implement and disburse.
Correct. I think ang key dyan is DPWH, because that's the bulk of the projects is, yeah. Correct. Do we have anyone from DPWH, Madam Chair?
This is like DBCC. If you want to make me work until my last 6 days, I can do by cluster. Sige na.
Lang, ma'am.
Pwede tayo mag-daily hearing.
Nakakaya naman ho sa inyo.
Magre-retire na rin si Atty. Toblon. Patrabahuin nyo kami hanggang last day. Actually, pwede tayo hanggang June 30, no? Araw-araw. Lahat ng ahensya. Hindi kasi special yung taon. Sinediya tayo ng 6, 7, o hanggang 7, araw-araw. Okay, gusto ni Sen. Tama ka. Oh, Senator, ay Secretary Dominguez.
Senator Gatchalian, we met, as I said, a couple of times, and last Friday was the meeting where we really discussed the numbers with DPWH and DOTR. Now, DPWH accounts for 90%, right, of that additional spending, and DOTR roughly 10%. Let me say, I'm personally confident that the setup in the management setup in the DPWH is capable of implementing that program. I think they're very capable of doing it. And the only difficulty, as I said, and it was confirmed by Secretary Villar, is the weather. You know, that one we cannot totally predict. So as to capability, yes, I think they have the funds. I have the management system and the push to do it. Same with the OTR. We are also looking at other agencies to speed up. DND, we're looking, of course, at DepEd and is that the AFP modernization plan, the DND, DepEd, and CHED, as well as DOH, to make up any problems we have with implementation of DPWH projects because of weather. So there's the main actors, and there's the supporting cast, which we are monitoring very, very carefully.
Sige. Thank you. Dahil sa inyo, maghihiring pa kami ng lahat para tayong DBCC at saka mag-goodbye ako sa lahat next week. Para makita rin natin at hanggang DBM, serious, DPWH, DOTR, DepEd, DOH, at nandyan ang DA. O, paano kayo makaka-reach ng 2%? Yun ang pangangailangan. Paano papakainin kaming lahat? Through the farmer. I mean, we want to know, para kung ang sagot ng lahat hindi kaya, alam na natin, hindi sa huli, kawawa naman yung next chair, sasagutin niya yung hindi nagawa ng ahensya. Para alam na natin yung i-expect by the end of the year. At kaya na yan ni Secretary Dominguez. He knows everything, what to do. Okay, so, last question. So, the 2019 expenditure level is 3.651 trillion. It is 106 billion lower than the 3.757 trillion of the President's budget. Why? Because of the 95 billion veto and the 10.3 billion in the GAA from MVUC funded projects. So that's 106 billion lower. So in view of this lower budget for 2019, is there any effect on the projected growth? And was this already considered when we downscaled our projections?
Yes,
For
Madam Chair.
2019, because the veto only happened. I don't think that was part of your projections. And what will happen to the 106 billion? Will there be a supplemental budget for the new Congress?
For no more for the 95 because we will be submitting the 2020 budget
Yes.
by July po. So, and we believe that anything that could, that needed to be implemented or needs to be implemented should have been included already in the 2020 budget
Yes.
proposal. For the disbursement program, it as I have mentioned earlier, ma'am, it already considers the decrease in the GAA. So we have computed based on the amount of the GAA plus the accounts payable for disbursements that will be paid for the year, including the continuing appropriations. So those are the three items that consist the disbursement program. Of course, net of the accounts payable that will be paid next year.
Yes. With that, I thank you very, very much. Secretary Dominguez, thank you for your friendship of decades and for our excellent working relationship in the past 3 years. And I will be here to support you, help you in the years to come. Secretary, well, Sunny, thank you so much.
Thank you to ma'am for your leadership of this committee.
Thank you. And your team, especially Anne. Yeah, thank you. And all your...
And we look forward to working closely with you.
Thank
in
you.
your reinvention of yourself.
Thank you to our NEDA team as well, of course, Treasurer Rosalia, where she's a gem in the bureaucracy and government, yes. Thank you to the NEDA team who've always also been very efficient in giving me back staff work during the budget. Yusek Hill, Yusek Edilion, Asek Abitan, and all your staff. You're all gems in government. Thank you. I learned so much from you. Yeah. And Yusek Janet, we welcome you to government. No, you've been there for a long time, but heading the DBM, you're a great addition among the cabinet, of course, with the great support of Yusek Tina, who knows everything also in the regions, and Asek Google, who knows, I call him Google because you Google, he knows everything in his brain, right? Thank you very much, and to your whole team. Very, very supportive. And Asek Tan, of course, Asek Tan of DOF. You're the one in charge of oral climate finance, hindi ba? No? But international, yes, yes. Deputy Commissioner Dibuco, are you from Antique? Okay, and Deputy Commissioner Gobalia, and all of those, hindi ko na nabanggit lahat. Where is Yusek Carl? May pinapapirmahan sa aking committee report. I will sign the committee report. Okay, basta nanggaling kay Yusek Carl. Diba? Yan yung tobacco tax, diba? I will sign, okay. So ano pa hong ihahabilin nyo sa akin in my last 6 days in office, Secretary Dominguez?
End of June.
6 session days. Yes, yes. And I would request the agencies to send your representatives, especially DBM. It would be good if Yusek Janet and Yusek Tina, ASEC, will be here for the agencies, the infra agencies. Okay. Yes, infra. Join me. So yun lang, picture taking. Sige. Diyan lang kayo, akong pupunta dyan sa likod nyo. Tapos ilagay nyo yung re-enacted budget na slide. Halika. Sige. And, pasalamatan natin si Attorney Doblon, who's retiring after 40 years of service. Director Irene Palanca will take over. Kala mo naman ako nag-appoint, hindi naman ako nag-appoint. Akala ko lang, ganun. Tiga. But thank you, Attorney Doblon, and the LBRMO, they're brilliant. You know, I would like to think, yung kulturang DBM, kulturang LBRMO, kulturang DOF at NEDA, yun ang dapat na kultura ng lahat ng gobyerno. Iba, talaga. Galing DBM, oo. Kasi, pag sumasagot, alam ang sinasabi. Pag hindi alam, sasabihin. Pag mali, kinokorek, aaminin. Ngayon. At saka yung work ethic, na 12 to 15 hours a day magtrabaho, parang ako, ganun lahat. 12 hours. Yoli Doblon, I talked to her 6 a.m. She answers up to 12 midnight. Irene Palanca. Huh? 18 hours? I work 18 hours. Yeah, hindi lang pala 12. Di ba? Ganyan tayo eh. Ganon. Ang mga LBRO, ganyan. Okay, pipig, dyan lang kayo. So, duro, na salamat. Palangga ko ano.
Ma'am. Dikit ng konti. Ayan, okay na yan. Okay, camera please. Okay. Thank you.
Natawag ko kayo.